Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do after finish detailing is that we're going to retopo inside Maya. Now this is what I have in ZBrush. This is a fully character that is already being sculpted and detail applied to it. Now we're going to use the GoZ plugin to send the character to Maya, and we're going to use the same plugin, GoZ, to send from Maya back to ZBrush. Now, ZBrush will always send the lowest subdivision level to Maya. Okay, now in this case, I have my character with 6 subdivision level. Okay, now if you click GoZ, you are going to send level 1 back to Maya. Okay, now if you don't want to send at level 1, you might need to do another step for it. Okay, so let's say I want to only send level 6. I want to see all these details inside Maya. So I'm going to duplicate this character, and I'm going to rename that to temp. Okay, temporary and high res. Okay, and before we send this to Maya, I'm going to delete all the lower subdivision level. So then this character will only have level 6 subdivision level applied to it. Okay, so once you delete the subdivision level, and then I'm going to click this GoZ. Okay, the process may take long, maybe quite long, depending on how complex is your character. So I'm just going to stop this video for now. The character that came from ZBrush, so it has about 2.8 million sent in Maya. So it took me about 3 to 4 minutes to get sent to Maya. Okay, so it's very laggy, and that's the reason why we have to have the low poly object, so that can be rig or animate without having the lagginess. Okay, now if you experience like very laggy issue because your character is very complex, we need to use the GPU cache, so that way like all these mesh will be stored in the GPU cache rather than stored in the memory. So that's why like you will not experience some lagginess. Okay, now to make sure that you have this feature, or this menu rather, you need to make sure the plugin is loaded correctly. So you need to go to settings, preferences, and then plugin manager, and then you type GPU. Okay, now make sure this GPU cache is loaded, so then you have the correct menu. Okay, now that it's being loaded, okay, all you have to do is you have to select the character, and then you go to cache, GPU cache, and you export. Okay, so you can type anything. This is just a temporary file that we're gonna use to do the topology. Okay, and you press export. Okay, now that it's finished exporting, we're gonna import the file so we can create new scene, and then we're gonna import the file that we just created. Okay, so you go to cache, GPU cache, import, and you go to this one, .abc. Okay, and now as you can see, this frog does not take any faces that being loaded to the memory. So now like it's not laggy. And from here we can trace using the quad draw. Okay, now you don't have to use this GPU cache if you feel like your character is not that laggy or doesn't cause any laggy issue. You can just go ahead and do the quad draw as per normal. Okay, so once everything is settled, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a quad draw. Okay, now before we do that, we're going to select the character and we're going to make it live. Okay, now this object live feature will let you trace on the exact surface when you do the quad draw, as rather than like flying around faces. Okay, because we don't want the quad draw to be like floating in the air. But if you have this thing object live on, the quadro will be placed exactly on the surface of his face and the body on the leg. Okay, so let's try applying it. Okay, so you press Shift. Okay, so you try to create the loop for the eye. Okay, like this. Now, once you finish with the Retopology, don't forget that you need to create the UV. Otherwise, you cannot export the displacement map later when it comes to ZBrush. Okay, so go ahead, create all the new topology for the character. Okay, so it's still laggy, but it's not as bad. Okay, try to create this loop. Okay. Okay, so I want to stop the video and yeah, finish with the retopology. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to send this character back to ZBrush. Okay, make sure you have the UV applied to the character. Okay, otherwise you have to go back to Maya and then you have to do the UV and send back again to ZBrush. Okay, now I already applied the UV for this character. Now before we send this character to ZBrush, you can try to delete the alembic. Okay, so this is the alembic high-res one that we don't need it. Okay, and you can click this low-res frog. Okay, and then just to check like everything is okay, there is no like endgone or anything, and then we can use the GoZ to send back to ZBrush. Okay, so the GoZ is right here, and you click GoZ. Okay, let's try to sending again. This time we try to have a proper name. Vlog low res. Create. Okay. Now it seems the frog is being sent to ZBrush correctly. So I'm going back to this original one, and I'm going to append the low res frog. Okay. So I'm gonna click append, and I click low res, and it seems the low res is being added. And then you can go back to the temporary high res, and you can delete that one. Okay. Now we end up with the original frog and the low res frog that we create in Maya. Okay. Before we stop the video, we need to make sure that the UV is still intact, because sometimes like when you're sending object from Maya to ZBrush, sometimes the UV disappear. Okay, so there is this morph UV menu. Okay, that will check whether the object have UV or not. So if you don't have the menu load, you can go to UV, and there is this morph UV. So it's the same thing. Okay, so let's create that. Now, in this case, my UV are still okay. Okay, I do it this way because it's going to be used for games. Okay, so with games, you can have the UV stack or overlapping. Okay, but since you guys are doing it for animation, I think it's better if you don't stack or don't overlap the UV. Okay, so now the UV is okay. I'm going to click this again. Right, so it goes back to the 3D view. Okay, make sure everything's okay, and then we can start exporting the displacement map in the next video.